The pressure is mounting for François Bayrou. On Thursday, a teacher told a website that the French Prime Minister was aware of claims of sexual abuse of young boys at a Catholic school, but did not act on them. He has recently faced pressure from the opposition over what he knew about the allegations at the school, where 3 of his children also attended. His wife also taught at the school. The French Education Minister said France must learn from its mistakes.
One could say that the state failed to step up in this case. And it's hard to understand how we didn't react sooner. That's why we must act by strengthening checks. It's also why we must take action to ensure that victims feel able to speak out.
The left last week accused the 72-year-old of lying to Parliament when he said he was unaware of the widespread claims. François Bayrou has repeatedly denied any wrongdoing.
I don't know these people, nor does my wife. Don't use words that are designed to escalate tensions. I am saying things as they are. The mechanics of the scandal always aim to raise the tension. I know that very well.
On Wednesday, 3 men were taken into custody on suspicion of aggravated rape and sexual assault committed at the boarding school. A group of survivors from Notre-Dame de Bétharram have so far recorded 132 complaints. But for survivors, taking legal action may be challenging, given the evidence of abuse dates from the 1950s into the 2000s.
Well, perhaps even more importantly, beyond the political implications of this affair, are the over 100 victims, as well as evidence of a system that has failed for decades to protect children. For more on that angle, then, Alice Ackermann is our guest for this edition of A Week in France. She's a communications consultant for the International Planned Parenthood Federation. Thank you so much for joining us today, Alice. So this case, of course, as that report said, involves abuse that occurred over about 40 years. Why did the French government fail to act when officials were made aware? Do you think this is revelatory of a French problem or something much larger than that?
I think this case really is the top of the iceberg of a systematic failure of the French state to protect children. I think it shows that it's not only in Notre-Dame de Bétharram, but I think in other schools, the report system is not good enough. We've seen that in the case of Notre-Dame de Bétharram, some people reported it. There's been an investigation by the inspection, but the result of the investigation did not result in closing the school or to have more investigation and protecting the children. So we're seeing that the state is not fully protecting children, and there's a need for a global reform and a comprehensive policy to protect the children.
Some of these things do seem very specific to the context in France, especially because this is not the first of such cases to take place here, even though it has a specific government service that's actually tasked with protecting children. I also know that one of the men who was arrested recently had been in his post at the school until last year. So what is specific to France about some of these failures?
I think in France we have still a huge taboo and a denial around the violence on children. I feel like we still need some kind of Me Too movement on the violence on children, because the children they have been speaking out about the violence that they are suffering, but they haven't been listened to, believed, and protected. And this is on the government, but also on the adults that are surrounding the children. It's like they don't want to listen. They don't want to face the fact that children are victims of violence. And so based on that, they are not protecting them well. I'm not sure if it's an issue only in France. I would say all around the world we're seeing children facing violence and the government failing to protect them and failing to hearing them. Even in extreme settings, like IPPF works in my organization, works in humanitarian settings, in conflicts. And right now, for example, in Congo, in the Democratic Republic of Congo, children are facing violence, rapes, and we see a silence around it. Like, we don't want to see it because it's so hard to see it. And right now we need a global solidarity. We need to talk to the international community to protect the human rights of children all over the world and not only in France.
So the major focus, at least in France, of this case right now is, of course, the political angle, whether or not the current Prime Minister François Bayrou knew about this when he was education minister. Do you think that the debate has overshadowed the stories of the victim, or do you think that even the debate surrounding what the Prime Minister knew can actually lead to constructive long-term changes?
I would say there are two sides. When you listen to the victims of Notre-Dame de Bétharram, they are saying that they haven't felt heard and listened to by the community. The journalists have been speaking over and over about this case on a regional level decades ago, and still we didn't react. And now that François Bayrou is the Prime Minister and people are more concerned and are listening more to the stories, I feel like maybe in a way it brings light to the responsibility of the politicians to protect the children. And François Bayrou is actually embodying the issue of inaction and complicity. And this is why we need to change the rules. We need to change the system. We need to hold politicians, schools accountable to make school a safe environment for children.
As a final question for you, Alice, what kinds of policies concretely do you think should be put in place, and policies that are clearly missing, at least from the French perspective?
We see in France that for the case in Notre-Dame de Bétharram, but also for the case coming around the surgeon Le Squarnec, is that the report system is failing. People have been reporting the actions, but then afterwards, nothing happened. And we need to ask ourselves why. And I think that's like the first step, and the civil society in France have been asking for it. The CVs, the independent committee working on incest and on sexual violence on children, have been asking to reassess the report system. And they also gave 82 recommendations to the state on how to better protect children from sexual violence, physical violence, and also incest, because we see there is still a huge taboo on violence on children, but also incest, which is one of the violence on children.
Just a very quick follow-up, and listening to you, I mean, you say that organizations have been fighting for these things to be put in place. You can understand why in other policies there's more political division about why or why not they should not, become law. But what's controversial about any of these proposals? Who is resisting them?
I think there is no controversy. I think there is a denial and a taboo, and people are scared to talk about violence on children because they are scared to look and to look under what's happening. Because I was saying Notre-Dame de Bétharram is the top of the iceberg. If you look under what's happening, who are the children being victims? We know that 160,000 of children in France are victims of sexual assault every year. And I feel like people, especially the government, maybe is scared of looking at that and taking actions to actually protect the children.
We'll see, I imagine, in the coming weeks if this does lead to any meaningful change. Alice Ackermann of the International Planned Parenthood Federation, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much.